Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Well, welcome to an episode of The Disruption Is Now, the podcast where we talk about all things AI, how it's disrupting our economy, how it's disrupting even how we communicate as professionals. I am back in the studio after about 3 weeks of travel. And last week, I was traveling to the Money 2020 show in Las Vegas, and I ran into my favorite client, one of my favorite people in the world. I say one of that because I leave my kids and wife above Jeff Fleischman, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Altimetrik. We've worked before on a number of projects, and now he's really into technology and AI. Jeff, thanks for being with us. Let's talk a little bit about AI.
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me in for this session. The whole world's jumping on to the AI bandwagon. So I work for Altimetrik. We're a technology and data company. We do a lot of data and digital engineering projects. And so in the last year or so, I would say that AI has gone from being an interesting topic to a mandatory, I have to get in. I'm not sure how to do it. Let's jump on this bandwagon. However, it's not a turnkey solution, and you can't just plug it in. So that is the challenge. So a lot of our clients go ahead.
No, it is interesting. You know, at the show we were both at, and we just came out of, it was amazing how many companies that I spoke to are ready to deploy. They've gone through their due diligence. They're looking for providers and solutions, but it's not a simple thing. There's all kinds of issues that impact it. Tell me a little bit about the conversations you had at Money 2020.
Yeah, so we met people across the industry, all facing the same challenges. They have data, they're not quite sure the state of the data. They know they want to do AI, they have the money to invest, but it's confusing and it's challenging. So we keep it simple. I will tell people, if you go into AI without having good data, you're throwing your money away. So you have to start with good data quality and governance. And if you don't have that, my personal opinion, AI is a bust. In fact, there was a Databricks, I think it was a CIO survey that said, I think 3/4 of the respondents said data problems were the number one issue in implementing AI, followed by the uncertainty of what AI can produce in terms of ROI. So I think everyone's on board. They know they have to do it. And now I think they're coming to terms with what is it going to take to be effective leveraging AI.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about Altimetrik, because it is a very interesting company. You know, it has a legacy that reaches back into, I guess it was machine learning or data management. What is the legacy of Altimetrik, and why is it so position now in what's going on in the world of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so Altimetrik was founded about 12 years ago with the premise that, all things digital are hard to implement, but it shouldn't be that way. So complexity was something we solved for. And we take a approach that is business-led. It focuses on business outcomes, and you start there. And then you bring an incremental approach, clearly define your use cases, your outcomes, and you're solving for people's challenges, you're solving for their problems in an incremental way. So we don't do a big bang. We start off with proof of concepts that grow from there and get things done pretty quickly. Data has always been important. The nature of how you use data, what you do with data, of course, has evolved. And now we're at the AI stage and whatever comes next. But data is always at the cornerstone. It drives customer experiences. It drives predictive tools. It drives forecasting. There's very little, I'm in marketing, right? Marketing is about data and technology. So without the right data as the building block, then a lot of things become difficult. Even simple tasks become difficult and you create experiences that may not be in the best interest of your customers. And you also have difficulty in being able to, I'd say, build out what your goals are and what projects need to be done to support those goals. So it becomes a challenge. So we've been in the data business for a long time, and we've always been at the center of data quality. And that's where everything starts. Whether you use AI or not, without good data quality, it makes it really hard to function efficiently and effectively. You can't make decisions as quickly and with as much confidence. So we've always been there. Of course, we do platform modernization, we do cloud migration, we orchestrate and integrate multiple systems to help companies move from the legacy environment to one that's more microservice based, which is more nimble, reusable. So we've been doing that. We've been very successful. We have good growth. And I think customers are now at the point where they're converging on this concept of it's got to be led by the business, and they have to take the ownership to be able to get the ROI. The last thing I'd say is that McKinsey, Forrester, Gartner, IDC are all speaking in a way that we speak. So that's not to say that they listened to us and took everything. But McKinsey wrote a book called Rewired. Gartner did one of their research papers on digital dragons. IDC has done a lot of work. And what they'll tell you, it has to be a business-led effort. It has to be outcome-oriented, clear defining use cases. It has to be collaborative. So all of those things are tenets of our digital business methodology that we've been using for over a decade.
So a lot of digital transformation in that legacy at Altimetrik. Tell us a little bit about the footprint of the company. How many employees are there? This is a big company, and I think it's sometimes overlooked. I just want to make sure that people understand just the significance of Altimetrik. I mean, when we were there, I got to see some of the brands that were listed on your trade show. Very impressive, your booth, particularly because it's really not that old of a company, but to be able to win over decision makers at major Fortune 500 companies is a real tribute to some of the things you've done in the past. And then let's talk about some of the things in the future. But how do you think it's managed to grow so quickly in that time frame?
We deliver. That's the shortest way of saying it. So we come in, we don't do big bang approaches. We don't do big projects, multi-million-dollar, multi-year contracts. We literally come in, we pick a use case, and then we deliver results pretty quickly. And that impresses our clients that we can deliver what we said when we said we can do it. So if you look at the growth trajectory of our clients, they typically start out very, very small. And then over a period of a year or 2 years, we become a much larger player within their organizations because we are able to deliver. And that's the credibility that Altimetrik offers, and it's why we're growing. So that's been the formula for success. We listen to what your challenges are, and we deliver against those. And it makes it real easy to make a connection with the client, demonstrate a mutual interest of solving what their challenges are and showing progress. And after that, you win their hearts and minds, and it becomes a very deep and productive relationship. To your question about Altimetrik.
And without sharing the names, give us some idea of the cool projects that you're working on that include machine learning, AI. What's the spectrum of projects you're working on, and what do you think? What direction do you think the industry's going?
So I would say they center around a few areas. Customer service. So you have AI chatbots, smart virtual assistants, and that's big right now. Matter of fact, I read something that said that AI will impact 90% of all call center business. It's a huge number. Recommendation engines are important. They could be used, and we've used them in retail. We use them for customer acquisition, upsell, cross-sell. You could use it for media. The other one would be predictive analysis. That's really more in finance and healthcare. So how do you do clinical trials? How do you do drug efficacy in a better way, a smarter way? And there's all sorts of things going on in healthcare now. One example in ML was they taught the machine to find cancer markers in breast cancer. And not only did it find the markers, but it found 2 new markers that doctors didn't even know about. So That's not us. That was just something I had read in a medical journal. And then I'd say the fourth area is this whole notion of taking voice and taking text and taking video and images and leveraging AI to extract out at the base level just the data. You can imagine complex tax forms, medical forms, where you let the machine, for lack of a better word, do all the work of bringing the information in and letting the humans, then do the thinking beyond that. So those are four typical cases that we would focus on. We're in all industries. So we've done AI projects in finance and fintech, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and they range. Yeah.
Let's go off the reservation here and talk about your personal. I know you were an early adopter, just like I was in the communications realm. You in marketing, me in PR. How startled are you where we are right now? Yeah, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised, but I am. I think I am shocked at how quickly it's penetrated, our everyday lives. I use it every day. If I could come up with a summary, it's like Frank's hot sauce. I use that blank every day. I use it for
Right.
everything. I use it for everything. My kids, who are not kids, they're adults. I used to tell them, go Google it, right? Your generation has Google. If I had Google at your age, I'd be president of the United States. And now it's AI. I say, forget Google. That's dumb. Go into ChatGPT, go into Gemini, and you can get whatever you need. And you can do it quickly. So I am actually surprised at how it has taken hold, and it's really in all walks of life.
And what surprises me is it when it came out, right? It was there wasn't a specific use case for it, right? It was just a blank line, and we didn't know what to do with it. And it has surprised me at how quickly people have figured out what to do with it. And I'm talking about ChatGPT and how it's really revolutionized the way we communicate on some levels. Now, there's some firms, some people who refuse to use it or don't want to spend the time to really learn how to use it, right? So many people tell me I've used it and it didn't give me good results. It sounds like a Wikipedia entry when I use it. What advice would you give to somebody who is climbing up the communications ladder right now, either in marketing, PR, digital, to really gain the mastery that you've won over by your use of it?
So I'd say a couple of things. You have to be curious, right? At the end of the day, play with it. Don't start if it's too abstract to do it through a business application. Find a personal application. Can I give you an example of something I use in my personal life that I could not do without AI? So as a kid, I collected baseball cards. So I still buy them from time to time. My kids are adults and they like to see my old baseball cards. So I got a baseball card and tops, and it was a home run derby card, meaning you pick the player on the card, you pick a period of time, they give you a period of time when or if they'll hit a home run on a specific day and game, and will be over or under 425 feet. Now, how much time would it take to figure this out? I went into ChatGPT. I said, for this player, tell me between August 1st and September 30th, when is this player most likely to hit a home run against the pitches he'll face? Did it in seconds. Then I said, is this batter more or less likely to hit a home run over a certain amount of feet? I got the answer. I submitted it. I didn't win. However, for me to do that on my own, I don't even know where to begin. How do you even find that information? So if you think about ChatGPT or whatever, tool you want to use, it really opens up the ability to bring in information, digest it, understand it so much deeper and so more meaningful than if you did a simple search.
Well, it's interesting because I think you make two good points here. And one is curiosity. For some people, they're not curious enough to want to master it, right? because it may not give you what you want. You may have to be curious just into the workings of the machine and what I did wrong prompting it. This just happened yesterday. I'm working with a member of the firm, and we did a proposal, and we both did it coincidentally, right? We didn't manage ourselves real well. And the one that, not patting myself on the back, but the one that I did was much more rich, much more human, right?
Right.
The one that this individual did was shorter, less thought out, more mechanical. And what was the difference? The difference was there was a lack of curiosity in finding out how to humanize the language, lack of curiosity in how to continually go back and work with it as an assistant instead of a Xerox machine. And I say Xerox machine, thinking you put something in the front of it and you get a perfect replica out the back. When I showed him my prompts, they were much more rich in the information, the RAG, what I provided to the machine. And at one point, I actually told the machine, please make this personal, that how honored we'd be to represent this company, what it would mean to our portfolio. And those kind of tip-offs led the machine to create much better outcomes. So that was the curiosity. And then the playfulness, I think those of us in our age group, you're younger than I, but still, I think, well, I often say this, the most joyous day of my career was when I first saw ChatGPT, because I realized that finally what took me hours to create and decades to master, right? To create the neural network in my brain that would allow me to balance data, which is syntax and verb use and Oxford commas, and intelligence, which is meaning, messaging, which is advancing human understanding, right? It took me years, decades to create those two neural networks that then I could combine. So the words could flow, and I was confident of my information, and at the same time knew where I wanted this piece to go. I really believe that those are two neural networks that took more than 10,000 hours to really establish in my brain. And when I saw ChatGPT, I realized that we don't need to bother with so much of the data anymore. Like the machine can determine whether an Oxford comma is required. The machine, if you tell it to use active verbs, can choose from an array of active verbs. And it can release us to go from this information age to the age of intelligence, where we focus on what we want the reader, what we want the audience, what we want the viewer to really grasp from this, right?
Right.
And that was very liberating to me, Jeff, because I'd spent so much time trying to teach others what I think was the unteachable. And that is, I had this neural network that would say, no, that paragraph doesn't belong there, or that's way too much detail up front, or we need to broaden this, or the audience is wrong. We're not really speaking to the CTO, or we're not speaking to the buyer here, right? And that became frustrating after years of trying. And then I saw it, and I realized I think I could really help people become better communicators. In the end, the real goal of communication is to advance understanding. Anything that advances understanding, I think, is to the positive, right?
Right.
And there's still issues. I'm working on an assignment right now, a script for a video for our year-end meeting, and it makes no sense. And I cannot figure out, what am I missing? How am I prompting this? It's changing it, and I told it not to change it. But for 80% of the work I do, it is my assistant, and I have different assistants. I approach it differently for different assignments. If I want something that's more human, I'll use a type of prompt that'll achieve that. If I want something that's more technical, if I want to summarize something, I'll approach it differently. If I want to create, right now I'm working on a crisis communications platform that will automate that process, so that I've just read so many manuals lately from major PR firms on crisis communications that are this thick, and mostly they're textbooks. And yet at the point of a crisis internally, or an issue, you don't want to be taught what a crisis is. You don't want to be taught what transparency is. What you want is to be able to identify the risk, create a process for managing the risk, and generate draft statements, prepare the crisis committee with actual cascades of workflow, right? And it does it amazingly. I mean, by thinking it out. And the way I did that was I just started to write random prompts. You could do this. Like if somebody came to you and said, right now there's an existential threat to Altimetrik, I'm sure you could write all kinds of prompts and you'd come up with it. Most people, though, at where we're at, couldn't do that yet. So the alternatives, the options are just limitless. And those that will succeed, I think, Jeff, aren't just those who know AI in our profession, but who've mastered it to do what you're talking about with your Topps baseball contest. I mean, that's really applying a solution to an issue which really doesn't have a solution that's out there. And if you can play with that in your personal life, applying that to business outcomes becomes so much easier. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you. Prompt engineering or prompts are critical. So I feel I'm actually a better questionnaire or questioner to people because of Gen AI. Because what prompts
Say that again.
I ask better questions.
This is an important point.
Yeah, I ask better questions in my human-to-human contact because of AI. So when I started with the prompts, they were very basic. And again, it's that curiosity. How do you make something better? So now with AI, because AI hallucinates, right? It will give you things that don't exist. So even in my prompts, I have to tell it, only give me things that are factual and can be supported. And then mention, I always want what it's referencing, the source. So when you prompt something, to your point, you give it directions on tone. First of all, you give it purpose. I'm a CMO and I'm trying to get the attention of customers. And then you want to tell your message and you give it that information. You describe the tone. It could be professional. It could be more humorous. It could be knowledgeable. It could be confident. And it really does nuance the output, base exactly what you do. And then you give it some guardrails. Like I write blogs and I write the blogs, but then I put it in and I ask questions. Is this clear? Here's what I'm trying to solve for in this blog. Here's what I'm trying to communicate. Does this do it? And sometimes they'll say it would be more effective if you did a summary, or why don't you add in a real life example? And what I find is after I'm done with the blog, I then say to it, I would like to find 3 or 4 research articles that support this. And I'd like the article name, the link, and the source. And that used to take, I can't tell you how long it used to take me to find stuff. So now I let it do the arms and legs work and let me do more of the thinking on the quality of the product I'm producing, as opposed to spending more and more time trying to figure out how to get the data.
Well, it's interesting because early in my experience, I wrote a blog post on the 5 pillars of a great prompt, right? And you hit many of them right there. One is who's doing the speaking, because as communicators, we have the unique ability to put us in the persona of who we're writing for, but the machine doesn't know that, so we have to tell it. Secondly, is who is the audience? And the more specific you can be with the audience, always the better outcome. And I always tell the story, we had a client, they were selling to municipal fire departments. I can't even remember. Oh, the story was about forever chemicals, right? And how the use of these puts firefighters at risk. And the magazine was for the chief of fire departments, okay, around the country. And by specifically saying the audience are those who make decisions to buy fire protection products for municipalities, the outcome was so much more clear. So who is the audience? The third one, which took me a little time of getting around to, was tone. Because I always tell people, give it the tone. And then I realized most people, you know what that means, and you articulated it nicely. You go, as a humorist, as a professional, most people don't realize or understand when you say the tone of an article, right? They don't know if you can say, make it balanced, or make it professional. Make it conversational, okay?
Right.
Because as communicators, we want to go more and more towards the conversational and less towards the technical. Although we need to be technical, we still want to have it in this form where we meet the reader where they live in a conversation instead of regurgitating just technical facts, right? So that took me a long time to understand and unravel, because we get to a point where this still wouldn't be right, and I suddenly realized people don't understand tone.
That's right.
I also tell them, what is the channel, right? It could be greatly different. It could be a byline column. I'll often say, write this in the style of a Wall Street Journal article, which helps with it. And what's the fifth one? I'm missing the fifth one, but that really focused in the beginning. Today, I think it's gotten so intelligent that sometimes you don't have to include all those, and it still does a really good point. But I think you make some really interesting things about tone, about audience, and those are the things that really are key to communications, right? The first rule of communication, know your audience. And so many times communications professionals and marketing professionals forget that. So touche. I think we're much in alignment on much of that. Where do you think this is going? Where do you think, Jeff, you've become so much more efficient in what you do. And I think you're about research papers. I'm so old, Jeff, that when I got started and I was originally a magazine article writer, I would call research librarians at the University of Pennsylvania to have them find me those articles. And believe it or not, they would call me back later in the day with the source, and I would go down, pay for the Xeroxes, and grab the articles. That's how inefficient the process was. This was before Google.
It's
so where do you think we're going? And how is this going to affect our industry, employment, and productivity?
Well, I think it's going to affect everything, right? And it's kind of scary, right? Because the web came out, we heard the same things, it's going to change everything. My perspective is that this is a good thing. It's going to make us more efficient. I don't look at it as a way of cutting jobs. I look at it as a way of enriching jobs. So take away all the low-hanging fruit, the image recognition stuff that can be done, bringing in these multimodal capabilities. So people don't have to sit there and spend time looking at documents and trying to translate what the documents are into a different file. Let the machine do all the work. That enables the people who are, especially if you think about customer service or if you think about technicians, their life is much easier. They go out, they solve a problem faster, they get the information. We have one company, a manufacturer, where their service people go out into the field, and before the changes we worked on with them, it might be difficult to find a manual, to find what the problem was. Now we have this expert virtual bot or assistant that can actually help close what the issues are, get the solutions faster, get the product needed to fix that in a much faster way. So it improves their productivity, it lowers costs, it improves customer satisfaction because you get the thing fixed the first time. When I work for a company, American Express, very big on customer service, and they had a single point of contact, a single point of resolution, meaning you call in and you resolve the issue. And American Express prided its ability to do that to the best it can. Couldn't always do it, but to the extent it can. If you think about what AI can do, it can help you solve a challenge, an issue, a question immediately. So what I think the world's going to become is that you're going to have a lot more background automation, and you're going to be dealing as an individual with crafting messages, doing analysis, and having the machine do a lot of the heavy lifting. Let me give an example of something I did that really saved a tremendous amount of time. I had to put together projections going out from 2023 to 2027 on spending across industry by technology function, platform modernization, cloud, site reliability, AI, data. And I was able to go in and prompt. Now, it took a while. And sometimes I would produce a table that looked good, and then I'd ask it to expand the data either by year or by industry, add a new industry, and then it would recreate the table in a very different way. So I had to really teach the prompt. I used to say, please leave the table in exactly the same format. It's almost like talking to a child in some ways.
Right.
But what I was able to do is pull together a pretty considerable amount of information around where we think the spending was going to be in our selected industries, by our selected services, that had I done it the old way, I would have put a lot of asterisks on the spreadsheet and saying, this is what I think we have, and here's kind of the source. When I did that, I asked for specific sources so I could reference that and footnote that in the presentation. So that was tremendous. And you think about it, you extend this into even, let's say, a finance person who needs to put together strategic planning. Well, you can pull in information, competitive information, market information, company information, and you're not spending time managing data and trying to put it into a format you can use. What you're managing is, how do you think about this in a more strategic fashion? What are my observations? What insights can I glean from this? Who's winning? Who's losing in the market? Where are we relative to the competition if I did a side by side? So I think
that's interesting, because look how that raises you as a marketer, okay? You're chief marketing officer. You have a lot of responsibilities. Some were lower priorities, some were higher priorities, right? All of a sudden, you have a seat at the table with the C-suite, because you've elevated your position to being an analyst, to actually understanding the market, to deciding where the firm will go in the next 5 years. And that's a very powerful place to be, all made available by data, but also the unique ability of AI to understand the narrative. You may have been able to piece that together with Google, but it would have been tedious, and it would have taken an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah, you raise a good point.
Look what you accomplished, and now you're just not the guy who knows SEO, or you're just not the guy who understands how to craft a press release, but you're somebody who's at the table with the C-suite, evaluating these markets, saying, this is the direction we have to go in the next 5 years. Here's what the data is telling us. Here's where the opportunities are. And now let's go out and seize it. So I really admire all that you've accomplished, Jeff. I'll tell a quick little story. We're both avid tomato growers.
We are.
You've become a master of that, as you have in AI. I appreciate you taking the time. You have a unique perspective in that not only is Altimetrics deep within these markets, but you're living, breathing evidence of how it can transform and advance careers. And for that, I just want to thank you for being part of the coalition of the willing, and as we move forward to learn these technologies so that we can responsibly advance them. So thank you.
No, thank you. And to your audience, don't be afraid. Experiment. Give it a shot. Try it. You have nothing to lose, and it will make your life better and easier. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and what we've been doing. And like you, both in tomatoes and AI, I'm an advocate and a believer.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Greg.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.